Hi, today we're going to be reviewing the Springfield XD40. It's pretty much the exact same model as the XD9, so this can be applied to both firearms. Now, to show you a close-up of this firearm, it's kind of basically a cross between a Glock and a SIG. This firearm here has the polymer in it, but on the inside it's basically kind of the same thing as the SIG. At least from when I've taken the SIG apart, it's virtually the same mechanisms on the inside without the hammer. Now, one thing I will give this gun in a torture test is, unlike a Glock, this actually has some pretty robust frames in it. And I'm thinking that the rails and the slide is really going to be a good benefit when it comes to actually torturing this gun. Notice we've been actually torture testing this. It's ran flawlessly, had no problems. But look at the rails up closely here. Those are very thick steel, much thicker than on a Glock, and much thicker than on many other firearms. Inside the slide, the same thing. It's very thick steel, and what that gives is a lot of room for particulate matter when you're trying to clean a weapon out. Having extra space for particulate matter is what makes the AK-47 such a reliable weapon in the first place. Now, for that reason, I've never had a problem with this. I know Glocks run flawlessly for the most part. There's just not really any issues with them. But one thing about the Glock I will knock it on, though, is it has those tiny little frame rails, and if you're in a situation when you've got fine sand, you could grind off that nickel coating that's on there down to the copper. With this, you're not going to have that problem. But regardless, I would never knock Glock. I love them, but this gun, it has definitely grown on me. There isn't a lot of videos out there on the internet. Vigilante Spectre does one that's pretty good on a torture test, but they just kind of open it up and drop some dirt into the chamber, and that's pretty much all they do. I want to kind of abuse this a little bit more. We're going to do that along with a magazine right now. Just like that. But I don't want to just do it like that. Let's really get this thing nice and dirty. Now, this sand here is probably one of the worst sand conditions we can use. It's a very fine sand, very dusty, but it's also got a lot of coarse grit that's in there as well. This will literally fill every orifice of this gun. In fact, let's go and dig a hole with it here in a second. There we go. And I'll use an open chamber again to dig this hole. And then I'll flip it around and in the magazine well, dig this hole. There we go. Oh yeah, look at that. Oh, just grit everywhere on the inside. We'll just shove it right in front in the action. And then I'll take the back with the slide and just kind of dig a hole here in the sand. Rub it all around. The magazine well is open. That's a dirty gun right there. There is not really much space in there that doesn't have dirt caked in it. Notice the back, the trigger mechanism is full of the wet soil that's deep down, as well as all the fine and coarse grit that's in there. The magazine well, which is down in here where the magazine release button is at, is caked. This gun is pretty much in bad shape right now. However, from experience, I trust the reliability of this gun. Now, nobody would take this gun, nobody would take a gun like this and have the action open, most likely, and get dirt in it. So the fact that it can still function like this says a lot to it. It does need a couple knocks just to make sure the dirt's kind of shaken for the most part out of it. Generally, when I go to shut it like that, it doesn't close all the way. That time, it closed almost all the way. However, when I give it some racks like this, notice it hesitates a little bit, but then after a short period of time, it tends to rack itself clean. But notice that sand falling right out of there. There we go. And that's all it takes. Now, let's see if the trigger pulls. 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 In fact, the trigger feels completely normal right now. Yeah. Let's do that again one more time, and then we'll go and test some bolts. But before I do that, let's get the magazine a little dirty here too. Now, this magazine has faced some criticism from people in the community because this magazine has, it's stainless steel, I believe, but it has kind of a nickel coating to it. I'm not sure if that's nickel, but it is shiny. They say that's kind of a disadvantage if you're in a combat situation. But one thing that is nice about it, it is smooth. This magazine I've never had a problem with in the dirt. Let's see if we have a problem with it in the dirt. Caking it, coating it around. I'll just kind of grind it around in there in the fine, coarse sand. Now, in fact, I'll try to dig a hole with it for a minute here. We'll just let it sit there. And again, just as another test, let's take this gun and let's just get some more dirt in it. And then let's just prove this once again, that it is capable of doing as well we think it can do. All right, with that being said, knock it a few times, and then we'll close it. Rack it a few times. Again, with the rails being so thick in there, unlike a Glock, I have no problem doing this at all, and there's so much space for particulate matter. Sand just falls right on out there, even that thick, wet sand. And the trigger pulls without a problem. Okay, without really doing much more, let's pick the magazine up. Notice we have a little pepper shaker right there with the magazine. There is a lot of dirt in there. Wet dirt, it's caked. I'm just going to do it a little tap here for a little bit and kind of see if I can get as much dirt as possible to come out just for a second. And with that being said, we're going to go ahead and give it a test fire. Couple things. I don't want to be like a lot of guys on the internet. I don't think it's safe to fire a gun if there's sand inside the chamber. I'm just going to run a quick brush through it. Not that I really am too concerned about it not firing, but I don't want to destroy my gun just because of something that really has nothing to do with functionality check. All right, I'm going to load this magazine up here real quick. So far, no problems. The bullets are going right down the magazine. And I can still feel dirt that's deep down in there. I can feel it kind of grinding inside of the follower, but again, with that nickel or just plain stainless steel coating, it's not really a problem. Load a couple more bullets here. One more round here. All right. There we go. Now again, just for fun, let's grind it around in the dirt one more time. Just kind of like that. And I might say I torture tested this last time. It was not clean since then, since the last time I came out shooting. But again, just with it like that, I'm just going to close it. Notice it didn't fully go into battery, but you wouldn't expect it to. Just a few racks like that is all I'm going to do. Trigger pulls. One more rack like that. Whoops. Trigger's pulling fine now. A few racks is all it takes to knock the dirt out. And again, just for safety, because you could actually damage your barrel and even have a gun blow up in your face. I don't know why a lot of people on YouTube are so okay with that. Just a quick brush right down the barrel. Nothing else, just to make sure sand is clear from it. Okay, let's take this sandy magazine. There's still a lot of dirt in there, I can see. And let's see if we can actually get this puppy to fire. Functionality test, Springfield XD40. Springfield XD40 works great. All right, part 2, torture test, Springfield XD40. But this time we're going to go ahead and we're going to put this puppy in some mud. But not just anyway, I'm going to do it with the chamber open, just like this. Right in the dirt, just like that. And again, I will say this is some of the worst dirt you could probably drop your gun in, because the sand is very coarse and it has very fine dust in it too. Let's go ahead and make a little bit of mud around here. I cannot believe that I'm actually doing this. All in the name of science. All right. One thing people might ask is, what about the grip safety? A lot of people are concerned about this little grip safety on the back of the firearm because they say that it adds complexity and possible reliability issues. I've never had any issue with it. In fact, again, with all that room for particulate matter that this gun has, I mean, there's been a couple times it's got stuck, but again, with the stuff I've done to it, that is expected. But with a couple racks, it's come completely undone, as would any gun in any combat situation. You know, but again, when you are in a combat situation, most likely you're not going to have your action open like this. But I want to have fun. That's the way we're going to do it here. Okay, so we're going to take this gun here. We're going to put it in some of this muddy dirt. I'm going to kind of try to put some more water here, and just to kind of make this as wonderful as we can possibly do. And we're just going to see it in here. Hang on. There we go. And again, I'll try to dig a hole with this puppy right there. All right. This gun is filthy. All right. I don't know how much more I can do with this thing. All right. This thing here looks like a archaeological artifact. I'm not even sure. All right, to conclude, just cake this with mud, and this is not going anywhere. So all I'm going to do is give it a few taps right here. Notice the fire control group is completely covered as well. All I'm going to be doing, dang yellow jackets, all I'm going to be doing is tapping this to knock some dirt off, pretending I'm in a combat situation, to see if just a few quick taps like this is enough to shake the soil off. Now again, I'm hoping with that room for that particulate matter that it probably will get stuck, but maybe I can loosen it up enough here. But let's see if I can do that. It's hesitating, but it's going further. Okay. Whew. Hard part is it's slippery. What's nice is they do have these little extra serrations here. But again, let's see if I can, if I'm in a bind, if I can get this loose fast enough to where, whoops, there we go. The slide is completely closing into battery right now. And in order to do that, the fire control mechanism needs to work too. Notice the grip safety is fully depressing. That is one concern people usually have because they are concerned about the grip safety. Anyways, yeah, all right, let's see if the trigger pulls. Well, it pulled. Okay, pulled. A little bit of hesitance, but it is firing. Okay. Again, because of all that wet grit, there's a lot of friction. Now, I am using low-powered rounds, so I wouldn't be surprised if maybe there was a failure to eject or a failure to fire. But let's see what happens with this much. Again, with all that grit in the barrel, I do not want to take a safety chance here. Let's just do a couple scrubs and check down the bore, make sure there's no large particles of sand, but touching nothing else.
Stop.
And again, I don't know why a lot of YouTubers... What? Isn't done?
Keep going.
Okay. Let's do a test fire real quick and see how this works. Went into battery. Failure to go into battery, but it fired. Okay? Huh. I have a bullet. I'm just not wanting to... Well, I'll eject it out anyways. Let's see if it fires again. Put a bullet in the chamber, but let's try that again. Hi, just to kind of conclude the video that we were doing earlier, unfortunately I was filming with my iPhone and I don't know why they film in HD, and as a result you'd think with 2 gigabytes that would have been enough to film the video, but I guess not. And so just with a few minutes of video I ran out real fast. So I'm going to try to do this again, just a finishing touch. But yeah, at the range I didn't have any more video to film, and I know it probably comes off as a conspiracy that maybe the gun was jamming and I was just trying to get out of it, but that is absolutely not the case. To conclude, basically we did cake the gun. I was able to fire the full magazine through it. Now, I did have jams, and I will say that there were multiple times after firing this that there was failure to fires. However, in every case, I never had a single failure to eject, It ejected successfully all the bullets in the entire magazine. It fed all the bullets in the magazine well. And I will say that the magazine did have mud in it too, as I put mud in the magazine beforehand. And yet it still was able to fire all the bullets successfully. I did find one thing though when I was going to fire it, and that was the one problem is it was having trouble going into battery. And you can see back here the gun itself was just simply having trouble going in all the way. And obviously right now it's fully into battery, so there was not a problem with that. And yes, this has been safety checked. So anyways, regardless of the fact, the gun was simply just having trouble going into battery with the all that sand and grit that was in there. But I found that if I just, and I have to do this with the other hand while I was firing, but I found that if I just simply, after it didn't fully close and go into battery as it should, if I just simply took my thumb with the other hand and I pushed it into battery, I was able to fully seat it, and I was able to fire it each and every time. Sometimes I was able to fire it 3 or 4 bullets off, and then it would jam just simply because it wouldn't fully seat the bullet. Again, I would just push it in with my thumb on the other hand, and I continued firing. To me, that is still above and beyond what this gun is asked to do. I am highly impressed by the capabilities of this gun to still fire through all conditions. As you can see here, the magazine still ejects, even though that this gun has not been cleaned since we fired it last. There is a bunch of grit still on the inside. The magazine release mechanism has had a lot of grit put in it within this last day, and it is still functioning pretty much flawlessly. So I am really pleased with that. Overall, again, this is just a test to see what in the extreme conditions we can expect with this gun. But it has gone above and beyond. I would not fully expect it caked with mud with the action open. I would not expect it to function hardly at all. And it still functioned as long as I pushed it into battery. But again, no failure to ejects, no failure to feeds. Even with the dirty chamber with mud, the only problem I had was it would fail to fully seat the bullet due to all the grit. Now, one other thing I will mention, I never had any problem with this grip safety that everybody likes to complain about. It has a little gritty feel to it, but it's just from the edges there. There is plenty of space on the inside, again with me racking the gun to kind of clear it out. I never had a single problem with it. The Springfield XD9 and Springfield XD40 is a great gun. This is a gun I would trust to take into battle. So now, is it better than a Glock? That's just something you're going to have to kind of decide for yourself. But as for me in my house, I stick with Springfield XD40.